weeks into Call of Duty World War II, and I really haven't done a lot of my thoughts and things like that on the game. There's a lot of things that I could say because I truly do enjoy it, but there's also a lot that I can be critical of, and that's kind of what we're going to be doing here within this one. I'm not necessarily going to be trying to tear the game apart, but instead I want to talk to you guys about 7 problems that still persist within Call of Duty World War II, and 3 weeks in, it's something that I'm sure a couple of weeks before launch, not everybody was expecting this sort of turnout. So while these things are problems and issues that are in the game right now, I'm hopeful that some of these can definitely be fixed in a reasonable fashion, and hopefully this doesn't serve as more so me complaining or anything like that, but instead something of a constructive viewpoint and criticism on some of the things that still persist, and a little bit of potentially a commentary on how we can work them out from a developmental standpoint and how we can go about hopefully seeing them as a community. So in this, we're going to be talking a lot about different deeper-rooted problems, some things that persist a little bit deeper in the coding rather than some things that can just be ironed out like glitches and some bugs here and there. So some of this stuff might be harder to rework, some might not even be able to be reworked, but hopefully some of these can be at least toned in a little bit of a manner that can suit the player a little bit more. But nonetheless, what we're going to be talking about here in this one, you probably have experienced at some point in time by yourself as a player, maybe with a party or whatever it may be, but nonetheless, if you guys have anything you want to add to this, feel free to let me know down there in the comment section down below. And who knows, maybe this goes as far as the development team and it can be something that we as a community can get out there and talk a little bit about, once again, in a constructive manner. But that said, let's jump into the first problem that I've seen persisting for quite some time as of recently. I hadn't had this happen to me all that much at the beginning of the game whenever it first launched, but as of the past couple of days, maybe about a week to a week and a half now, it seems like almost every lobby that I end up joining in, whenever I initially spawn into a game, I'll choose my class, my division, and all that, my selection will be made, but then for a few good seconds thereafter, I'll be spectating somebody else, and then it'll take a little bit of time for me to jump into the game as well too there, whereas previously every single game that we've played in the franchise, you've made that selection, maybe at the most, you had about a 1 to 2 second delay from that selection to when you actually jump into the game. However, with this one, it is something that is much longer, much more prolonged, and therefore really starts to bug people. And one thing that I actually saw that was a problem persisting from some reports I saw over on Twitter and Reddit, where a lot of people that played SND, they would have this problem, and then because there is that timer in which it's a cutoff, they wouldn't be able to make an entire round of SND. So therefore, they would probably have this problem a little bit worse than I do, whether it comes down to personal connection or anything like that. But still, the fact you can be delayed enough to the point where you actually can't make it into a round of SND, that's something that's definitely an issue, and one that I think might just come down to server-side connection or maybe even player-side connection, but it definitely has to be a combination of either both or more so on the side of the Activision servers because, like we've mentioned, there's never been this drastic of a problem with connecting and jumping into and spawning into a game in any of the games previously. So while at its core it might be as simple as once the connection is fixed within Call of Duty overall, within World War II, because disconnects are definitely something that are a big issue still, while the servers have been spotty here and there and not perfect for everybody, maybe that's something that is fixed and ironed out whenever those issues get resolved as well. But that's gonna move me into the second thing, talking about spawns once again, but in a different mannerism. And this is more so something that I have totally noticed, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have as well too. The spawn points and spawn algorithms within World War II to me just seem a little bit off and I think need adjusted in some way, shape, or form. So where it becomes an inherent problem within is that a lot of the times in World War II, especially compared to other games, you can be spawn trapped a tremendous amount within these maps, and that's partially due to design, but also because of spawn algorithms. The ones that stand out to me the most, I think, are Gibraltar and USS Texas. Now, for those of you guys that know those maps and maybe played TDM and had this happen to you as well, you'll notice that the area in which you have to spawn is very open, but you won't flip very often. And there's many times, especially on USS Texas and Gibraltar, in which I will literally spawn, turn around, and there'll be somebody already looking at me or coming around a corner to look at me, all within about a second to 2 seconds time, in which well, there's nothing you can really do there. Spawn protection only helps you so much against grenades and aerial streaks, not somebody gunning you with a bar or a PPSH. Now, the big meme right now is that Condry referenced this and said that it has a franchise low spawn kill rate, in which it's only 3 out of 1,000 deaths that are resulted as a spawn kill. Now, personally, I think that whatever data they're using could be valid, but it's definitely the different criteria than you and I are expecting them to use. Personally, that might be something that they have to look directly at you whenever they're spawning, but that might not account for the times that you spawn and in a second turn a corner and then die with somebody looking at that corner. That could be exactly what they're looking at, to which that data once again could be valid, but it's not what we're hoping for. Now, how we would end up going about to rework these, I think, would definitely be to either obstruct more lines of sight, say like in USS Texas, maybe add another couple partitions of what could be debris to allow players to push out of those spawns behind the cannons and on the opposite side of the map, and Gibraltar, maybe once again some debris just to allow for a few more seconds of mobility to get into the fight. Or if you can't do that, you're going to have to, at its core, change what the parameters are for intruding in a spawn. So whereas maybe it might be in-game 10 feet away from a player and their spawn points, what would then work would maybe be to change that parameter to being 15 to 20 feet or so away in-game from where they spawn, so that players would ultimately have more time to get through and ready to a gunfight if somebody is charging that spawn. And if they intrude on in that area, that's whenever the system should be queued up to flip them out. So once again, it's not something in which I'm ever going to claim to be an expert in, because spawn systems are incredibly in-depth and incredibly delicate, but just from my outside perspective, I think that that could make worlds of a difference. Now, I didn't mean to get caught up in a tangent or a rant on those ones, but moving along into the next thing is the contract system requirements. A lot of what you guys may notice is that the contracts at their core are rather hard to do, if not impossible. And one in particular that always stands out to me is the 10-minute time limit for 55 kills in war. It doesn't matter how much of the objective the enemy team plays, or if you're the ones trying to push up, it doesn't really matter. 55 kills in 10 minutes is next to impossible for one player, unless you end up getting that perfect lobby that consistently will run into you and won't ever pick you off from anywhere. That's just stuff that is really hard to do. And while of course I totally understand where you get the easier challenges for the more armory credits you pay, some of them once again just need some reworking to make them valid. Something that is of course tough, but actually possible. Something of a success rate of maybe 10% even, because I can almost guarantee you that 95 to probably 97% of players won't be able to get 55 kills in 10 minutes for war. I don't know, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm seeing that completely wrong, but that's one thing that I definitely think should be readjusted and simply reworked, and that's how you'd remedy it, is just by reworking the values needed for each of these in that time limit. And the next thing that I want to talk about is the error code 1, 3, or 5. This was something that I actually had no idea of, and I hadn't seen it personally beforehand at all. You guys actually made me aware of it by commenting in the comment section, saying that you couldn't even connect to servers and everything because of this, but I did some digging on this one, and this one actually has had a remedy brought up, but it's still a relevant problem that has not been fixed at its core just yet. According to Sledgehammer, they made a comment on this to hopefully remedy once again that for a temporary situation, you have to go through a full power cycle on your console, your Xbox One or PS4 or PC, and also as well as your modem and router, essentially just resetting everything that you could be connecting to the game with, and then get your NAT type to an open, and then you try to avoid wireless connection there afterwards to your PC or your console once again, and that should hopefully take care of everything. But that, once again, may be taking out the error code 1, 3, or 5, but something that definitely has been relevant for quite some time, according to you guys, is one that hopefully should be fixed rather soon. And the next thing is one that definitely affects many players in general, this being sprint out times and quick draw times. Now, the theory is that right now we reverted all the way back to some of these settings from the first week of the beta, and the sprint out times is one of those things in which is up on the chopping block for that theory. Now, the first week of the beta, sprint out times were absolutely abysmal, but on the bright side, that theory of the sprint out time for this is actually false. The issues in which it ends up coming down to, where people start to think that it's much worse than it actually is, which I'm not saying it's good, it's still bad, but where people think that it is as abysmal as it was before, is that quick draw is itself bugged. Quick draw is meant to cut down the time that you aim down sight with. Well, in World War II, sprints out time essentially negates quick draw because of the way that it works out. Quick draw is right now not hard-coded to end up canceling out the sprint out time, it's rather the other way around, which is really weird. So the standard SMG is about 25 milliseconds lower with the ADS speed than the sprint out time, and with quick draw, it's roughly 125 milliseconds of a difference, which is drastic considering the fact that it doesn't cut sprint out time down and has to match that sprint out time. So you definitely notice a lot bigger there. So while yes, quick draw also is not working properly to negate that time, the sprint out time itself is still too high, and I believe that there was a pro meta fix at one point in time where you backed up right whenever you finished sprinting and it was supposed to cancel out that animation, but it was something that wasn't necessarily as viable. But whenever it comes down to this, at its core, a fix is simply just to lower these values so that it is a more viable option for sprints out with incoming fights. That then would negate players camping head glitches waiting around corners, or hopefully, in theory, would do that, but it would also give players that would be rushing and maybe facing those players in those head glitches or pre-aiming corners a better chance to get their weapon up in time for either beating or countering that first shot that the enemy may have. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about, the sixth thing with this one, is a solo headquarters, and we've talked about this one for a bit of time now, so that's why I'm putting it at the later point of this video. I don't want to beat a dead horse with it, but that's something that has been plaguing the game for a long while. Xbox One apparently hasn't had any remedy for this at all. PlayStation 4 had a day or two in which right whenever supply drops were made buyable, players to get into a populated HQ, and then PC actually has a nice little system where it is two separate entities, where you can choose to go into headquarters and where you can choose to go into matchmaking. So that's something that hopefully within either the next upcoming hotfix, maybe to get rid of double XP starting as of tomorrow afternoon, that's something that fixes it, or just the next patch coming in a very near time. We don't have an ETA for it, but maybe Tuesday or something. Hopefully it fixes this and remedies it a little bit further. And then the final thing that I want to talk about just comes down to the general, once again, looping backwards to where we started, is the disconnection issues overall. Now, this is something that has just been servers and something that we as players can't really control. It's not something like where if you go out and upgrade your internet right now, you'll have a better connection in World War II, because the servers, though dedicated servers are back online, they're still not entirely where they need to be compared to either other years or where they were hoping to be whenever the game launched. That's something that is just going to take some time, and of course, we have made some progression in how the system itself is working. We ended up going back down to peer-to-peer, but this problem itself will be resolved in time, but it's just something that as us consumers, we can do nothing but sit and wait, and hopefully a fix will come in the very near future. But that said, of course, that's where we're gonna wrap it up, so I'd love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. What do you guys think of this? Do you think that there are a ton more problems that I could totally list out here? And if so, feel free to let me know in the comment section down below, or are you guys content with this list as well too? Do you think that we covered a lot of some core problems within World War II that go a little bit deeper than some of the glitches that will be ironed out, no doubt, in the next patch or next hotfix? Whatever it may be, let me know down there in the comment section down below. But that said, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and if you guys did, make sure you drop a like down below, and of course, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe to stay up to date with everything we have here regarding Call of Duty World War II, issues, updates, best class setups, tips, tricks, news, information, all that kind of stuff. If any of it interests you, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. And finally, if you guys want to follow me over on Twitter, that's the best place to get connected outside of YouTube. I practically live on Twitter, so if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, link is down there in the description below. But all that said, out of the way, hope you guys have a fantastic day. Thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care, and peace.